Okay, welcome back. We are in the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. My wife asked, where's the cover to that book? I don't know, I lost it somewhere else, but I still have the book. So we are in chapter 2. I can tell you, it's so exciting. I was actually reading further into chapter 3. It's as if these stories are written for people like me. I'm a power washer. I'm a very simple person. I have very simple thoughts. My name is Jake. It's one syllable, right? But this book was written that I could actually be excited about listening to it, and be able to or read it, and then be able to grow with that. So in chapter 2, where this is, as I mentioned, this one is co-written with Ken Goodrich, who is in HVAC world, which I do not do HVAC, but I did find it the most applying to my business. So in this chapter, we actually learn a little bit about his story, his journey, and how this book has helped him out. Kind of interesting quote he first starts out with. It's kind of funny. Let me know if you know the song. Money for nothing and chicks for free. I want my MTV. What an interesting song or quote to be for your journey here. So it talks about here with this first company in 1988. He struggled with payroll and was $300,000 in debt. But after applying Michael Gerber's principles, I turned that company around, and over the next 30 years, monetized 24 HVAC and plumbing companies. And by 2019, owned a group of companies doing more than $100 million in sales. So what's exciting is, sounds like what he learned and applied. Remember I told you earlier, he read this book 39 times over this journey, applying those things to now be doing $100 million. Holy schmoly, there's something he learned here. So it first talks about this is really interesting. What are the story that we have growing up as a kid that we kind of remember and we can kind of bring into our future? Meaning, what are some of those experiences you had earlier on that really kind of helped shape some of the things that you are today? One thing he talks about is when he was younger, his dad was an engineer by day and an air conditioner repairman by night. And one of the things he would do for his dad would be hold the flashlight while they're working. And it's kind of cool when you look now on his trucks, it's this boy holding the flashlight, which is really cool. So that story kind of became a story of his companies. But that was really interesting to know. But what he talks about is he wanted his MTV dreams. So one day after his father passed, he ended up buying the company from his dad, which was very, very small. Remember, it was just him working in the evenings. And he had his first taste of being an entrepreneur. He was a great technician and thought it should be pretty simple to transfer over. Haven't we all kind of thought that sometime? This should be easy to do. I'm really good at my job. I'm really good at power washing houses. Maybe I should start a business like that. So he talks about he wanted to kind of have that industry and MTV lifestyle. And you're going, what is MTV? Music, television. It was really big in the 80s and 90s, or I always had the tour through the different MTV cribs and all these kind of things. So that was kind of probably the influence, just in case you didn't hear about it. What it talks about this is here, within 2 years, my business had grown from to 24 employees and a fleet of new vans with fancy lighting on them. And our company signs or billboards were all over Las Vegas. So here we are, early success. It would feel like. Sometimes we'd like, hey, cash flow is coming in. Things are happening. How could I use it to my advantage? And he talked about with all my success, I decided it was time to get out of the service van and into a new BMW. After all, I am the business owner. And every day, my sense of excitement, I'm living the dream. I'm the master of the HVAC world, and I can taste the MTV lifestyle. You know, when we started our company, it's because we actually had to. I got let go from a job, and I had to find a way to feed my family. And it was a little bit rough at first, but it was kind of exciting. My wife was telling me the first time we got bigger checks in the mail, you know, when they're close to $1,000 to get checks in the mail for one day. And that was more than I made in a whole week. And I was making it in a day sometimes. And I was like, holy moly, maybe we're living the MTV lifestyle in our little 1,000 square foot house with my old Dodge truck in the front yard. That got stolen twice. Anyway, so one of his friends introduced him to this book saying, hey, before you run one more service call, he said, I suggest you read this book 3 times. And he says, well, I got back to my fancy office and I put that book on a fancy shelf. I want to guess it was this book here. Now, this is an interesting quote here. I read this to my wife, and I don't know if she thought it was as interesting as I did. It says, one day, a devilish man when in his 50s, pulled up in my office. He drove a beat-up car. I didn't think much of him. He lacked my energy, my style, and he lacked my fancy BMW. He introduced himself curtly and handed me a business card which read, Internal Revenue Service. What would that feel like, by the way? Oh, boy. I looked at him and he spoke, you haven't been paying your payroll taxes. And he said, what's payroll taxes? And so he talked to his bookkeeper, why I've been doing this. And he was very, she said, why we haven't been paying it? Because we haven't had the money to pay it. So here he was secretly kind of living this lifestyle on the outside. But meanwhile, on the inside, he was probably struggling to make payroll or all these things called payroll taxes. And some of my observational notes on here was, when have I acted like we have it all together, but secretly struggling? Sometimes people say we all live a life of quiet desperation at times, and sometimes a business owner feels like, oh, you own a business? Well, can you donate to my kids whatever? Can you help donate to the school for whatever? Because you own a business. Obviously, your business owner making all the money. And we kind of get caught up in that hype sometimes thinking, yeah, we do own a business. And I see all this cash flow coming in. If you don't understand about cash flow, what we have to do with that, there's another book on Simple Numbers, Big Profits by Greg Crabtree. We kind of go into more depth about those things, but we haven't got to that point yet in this book. But what was really interesting is the IRS agent went through accounting records and he demanded that they agree to a payment plan and will not accept less than $10,000 a month repayment plan. Wowzers. Now that would be a hefty payment plan. So I recommend, of course, before we get into that, obviously having a good relationship with an accountant or bookkeeper that is looking over these numbers for us. Okay? This one talked about is when we have a bad relationship with our bookkeeper, just thinking that this mystical person is going to take care of all the stuff from what we should be paying and then what we should be receiving as well, meaning when we invoice a customer, we got to make sure they're actually paying us. That was a big one. We changed over our bookkeeping company, and I had this big scary nightmare that I wasn't going to get paid on on jobs we were doing. And so I created not my own system, but from a book called Traction, implemented a scorecard, which now I monitor weekly on making sure what is my accounts receivable or ARs, and I can kind of check that out, and that helps me with that. We'll kind of cover more in that some later time though, but that was one of the things that I did because I don't want this to happen. So Ken Goodrich says, okay, I agreed to it, and this is interesting. I was 2 days late making the first IRS payment. Big deal. Who's going to notice, I thought. The next day, 6 agents with guns and badges arrived at my office and said they were here to seize my property for not paying the IRS on time. They even, get this, put big orange stickers on those brand new vans he talked about, hooked them up to tow trucks, towed them away. Right? And then they also seized all the money in his bank account because he was late. And then this is crazy thing is employees' paychecks bounced. Vendors' paychecks bounced. Some of the technicians said, hey, the top ones he mentioned, so we're not going to work until we get paid. He's like, hey, I've got things in the schedule. Go do the work and then I'll get you paid. They walked out. Then he had vendors showing up demanding to get payment as well. Oh, this is a rough one. This is crazy. He talks about when the day was finally over, he went up into his office and put his head in his hands. And when he finally looked up again, he noticed a book that a friend had given him 3 months earlier. He pulled it off a shelf. And I guess he says he read the whole thing in one night. Wowzers! This is a pretty sized book. You can read it in one night. I think it'd actually be kind of fun. Hard to implement everything when you read it all at one time, though. But when he's done, he had a new vision for his business. Now get this. 3 years later, he paid back all the IRS debt, which accumulated to $300,000 with late penalties. He became the market leader in residential in his area, in service and replacement. And 2 years after that, get this weird. 2 years after that, I sold my 3 companies for 6 times original goal. So wait a minute. Not only did he pay back all that debt, but then a few years later, he had somehow acquired other companies and then sold them for 6 times original goal. One of my questions I put on here is, do I have a plan in place? Well, obviously, do I have a plan in place to pay taxes? Yeah, if you're hearing that going, do I have a plan in place? Am I paying things right? But, let's talk about, do I have a system to be able to buy other companies and make them successful? This is what this book is talking about. He's crediting these things to this to the success of reading this book and understanding it and applying it. And he says now, in 2013, I bought a failing air conditioner business, and it was doing $11 million in sales, but losing $3 million a year. Now, okay, so he bought a company that's doing $11 million in sales, but then losing $3 million. How confident would you have to be able to buy a company like that? Not only that, what kind of credit do you have to figure out? Or what kind of agreement would you need to make with that company that you're able to buy them? Those are all good questions to ask. I'm asking the same things. But what's interesting is the confidence you would have to say, I have gone through it before. I have applied systems where I've bought and sold other companies. I can do it now on a bigger level. So he bought this company, excuse my nose itches here, and in 6 years after the purchase, using the very same principles taught here by Michael Gerber in this book, I led the company to $100 million in sales with a 17% profit rate. Wow, that's pretty darn good. He had come full circle. So this is what I love about this book. I can keep reading. I was actually already reading the next chapter, making highlights. Isn't it interesting that in this book it talks about problems the business owners have had in the past when they learned what they were doing wrong? I guess also part of it is when you're learning, are we willing to be open with ourselves that we don't know all the secrets? I would be willing to be open to say, I'm sure there's probably a better way. Or to say, nope, I'm just going to be stubborn. I'm going to keep plowing through this, applying massive action until the IRS agents show up or we go out of business. No one's really saying that to ourselves. But I understand sometimes as an owner, we have to kind of maybe act that way. Maybe we want other people to believe in us if we show confidence in what we're doing. But imagine the confidence we can show what we're doing if we have a system that we can apply that is so strong that we can be able to one day be in a position to buy other companies and turn them around as well, or be in the option to one day maybe retire and sell it or gift it to your family. Whatever it is. But either way it's going to come from, are we willing to be open that maybe there's a few things we don't know about money? And actually, the next chapter is, and chapter 3 coming up, is on the subject of money. Well, starting a business, we need money. Pay our bills, we need money. But do we know everything about it? I don't know. I guess so. Stay tuned for the next chapter in chapter 3 and Michael Gerber's The E-Myth. So if you haven't got the book, go ahead and grab it. We'll read this together. See you soon.